It's been officially 1 week since Light Hotspots went live, and at this point, we've sort of ironed out most of the early bugs that have bit the miners, that have bit the validators, and we're getting to a somewhat steady state. I don't want to say too much about it. I want to let the people working on it talk about where we are, where we're going. I'd love if we could just start with a quick recap of what this all means, why we're here, why we're doing this Light Hotspots thing, and what goal that we are working towards.
Sure, let's start there. Thank you for the introduction, Arman. And hey, everyone. I know it's been rough for a lot of us for the past week, but really the Light Hotspot transition is super important to the network because the way it existed in the old days where the hotspot had to run the entire blockchain, it was talking over peer-to-peer network, it was just not going to scale anymore. And we were really going to see way worse performance long term, right? Our goal is not just to get it to 800,000 and stop. Our goal is to get this to the world's biggest LoRaWAN network, decentralized LoRaWAN network, going from 800,000 to millions out there. And the path to get there was not what we built 2+ years ago. And it has been incredibly awesome to see the community take part in all of this growth. And we want to encourage more to do this today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. And so in order for this growth to continue this way, we felt it was really important to get these hotspots that are running Raspberry Pis to stop doing that much work. We needed it to do less work so that it can do more of what it was meant to do, which is proving that there was coverage for IoT devices, so little things like sensors and trackers, temperature monitors, to really be able to send data packets very cheaply over this network. And so that's kind of the reason why we needed to do this. And then I can talk about kind of the state of where we're at and go over a little bit of our next steps and maybe start answering some questions. So firstly, the entire core team and the moderators, mentors, the foundation are feeling we did not want this to kind of be this way where only about a quarter or half the network is mining HNT right now. We feel you, we hear you, we empathize with your disappointment in this launch. And we are working our hardest to get us through. And today we have found one issue that we believe we have a fix. It is running on testnet right now. And soon we'll be fixing this on mainnet. And I'll type this out in an announcement so you guys can get back to it and read it later. And the other issue that we think has to do with why hotspots just kind of die and not do anything has to do with an underlying process that just kind of silently dies. And this is why if you read some of the community channels, you see some folks say, I rebooted and it started working, right? That we have seen anecdotally that it does work maybe 25% of the time. And so this rebooting action kind of kicks this dead process back up to life. And that's kind of what we're seeing. And so we have another member of the core team looking into that and fixing it while we have another change that we're testing right now going at the same time. So that's kind of the state where we're at. We're seeing stability on the network right now in terms of receipts coming back. So there is some sort of consistency now that we can kind of measure against as we get these new improvements out to the community and to hotspots. So I'll kind of stop there and then probably look at some questions and take questions from the audience.
Yeah, I was just wondering if Abai had anything to add, and then if not, I'll also add a couple things before we move on.
I am just here to support the team. I'm going to answer questions in the channel as Coco answers questions up here, and Mark is also here to sort of support. But yeah, I guess, the one thing that I would add is that this is obviously an all hands on deck sort of situation. This is absolutely our highest priority work. There is, obviously there's other work going on in the community around 5G proof of coverage. We're building mappers. We're doing a lot of other things as well. But obviously, this is the sort of our number one priority. And launches like this are tough because we have a 800 plus thousand node hotspot node network. Almost a million. Look, where we're talking about the largest P2P network that's ever been created. And so changes, aren't just kind of like a light switch, unfortunately. And so, we are, and replicating some of those sort of conditions are hard in a test net. That's also an open net. So a lot of the changes that we're doing in testnet are really to allow us to understand the problem and be very tactical in the kinds of changes that we're making. So I really want to thank the community for all the work that they're doing, and I really want to sort of say again that we really appreciate the patience. And this is a small change, a small time period, right? In the grand scheme of things, we're building a network that will last years. Many years, and not like 2 or 3 weeks. So that's something I just want to remind everyone.
Yeah, and I got to add on how hard this must be to sort of debug things in real time and fight fires in a decentralized context. I have a lot of empathy for the team going through this right now because I've gone through similar things myself. When I was developing a mobile game, I remember I had one release where I had a bunch of major changes. And, every time you submit an update, it has to go through the App Store review process. So I submitted a change. There was a major bug. I had to submit another change. And then all my users had to wait a few days for the game to work again. And then I broke something again. I'd submit another change. And this repeated 6 times over the course of 2 weeks. And I felt like I was going absolutely insane. So the speed at which you guys are moving here is impressive. And of course, you have a whole team. But I have a lot of empathy for the work that you're putting in, and also for the people who are on the other end of this who are like, why are my minor rewards not here? Why am I only challenging once every X number of days? We're all going to make it. That's sort of the saying these days. So patience is key for sure. I wanted to ask, just to sort of bridge the gap from start to end, if we could talk a little bit about what the start state is that we started at, what the current state is, and what the end state is. So I think we talked a little bit about the start state to the current state. So right now, hotspots are still syncing with the blockchain as sort of a backup in case we need to revert the light hotspots update. But where do we go from here? What is the final state where we can say that this light hotspots transition has completed, and what is that going to look like from a software side, and then what's it going to look like in terms of miner performance and earnings?
Yeah, I'll take that. So the final state is the hotspots to stop syncing the chain, as you mentioned, and also for the hotspots to route their device packets through the new Rust gateway. So right now it's still going through the Erlang miner, which is kind of what the old full hotspot kind of ran in its olden days. It's still on right now, left there so that we can revert just in case. But the end state really is to have a full gateway RS implementation on these hotspots. And I'll say it again, hotspot owners don't need to do anything. It'll be a software update from your manufacturer. And when we have that ready to go, we'll ship out a build, they'll pick it up, and they'll send it down. And the end state really is a hotspot will consume much less bandwidth because chain sync is off. So this will be fantastic for those that have off-the-grid setups. Everything will be routed through Gateway RS, which is the Rust implementation of the gateway miner as it exists today. Validators will be creating challenges like they do today. And hotspots will earn rewards for beaconing, witnessing, and data packet transfer.
Right. So we'll be at the final stage where hotspots are entirely decoupled from basically the blockchain chain syncing and are delegating 100% of activity to validators. Power usage will go down. Heat hopefully will go down as well as a result of less CPU cycles needed to do things like syncing the chain. and following the
Right.
chain.
And less read cycles to your SD card. So hopefully you never replace it again.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big one for all the people out there who've replaced SD cards once, maybe even twice. I mean, this is going to take the read pressure on the SD cards from like way too much for a normal SD card in any circumstance to like basically nothing. The problem will be entirely solved.
And I think the next question to that is, the timing of everything. So once we're able to get past sort of this receipt issue, letting hotspots be able to participate in POC again, of course, is our number one priority. And once we can get out of this, and we will for sure, the team is incredibly smart. With the support of the community, we will get through this. Is to turn off chain syncing, get the routing packets through Gateway RS, and then update the Gateway RS to handle POC, because the miner is still doing that right now. So those are the three things that we have left to do. And also to get rid of the Erlang miner, but that'll happen with the last piece. So timing wise, probably still looking at and to the full complete implementation, probably 3 to 4 weeks. But we are halfway light right now, I guess, if you want to call it that.
We're medium feather. Medium light is a feather.
Medium featherweight, yeah.
Medium featherweight. That's right. So I'd like to ask a couple questions about the technical implications of some of this stuff, because I don't know how much it's been discussed, but there's some little sort of side effects of this transition that I think are interesting. So validators currently sync with every other participant in the network. They sync with full nodes, which are most likely people running like ETLs to do data analysis and whatnot. And they also sync with the hotspots. And because of this, validators have a lot of inbound and outbound traffic talking to these other network participants. And so now in this new light hotspot architecture that is being deployed, everything no longer is transferred over the P2P network. All this data, like data packets, whether it's POC, anything, all that stuff is no longer transmitted over the P2P network, but rather directly to validators over gRPC. So what does this mean for validators' load? Does this mean that, the moment that hotspots are taken off the chain, that validators will have a lot less cross chatter because they don't have to talk to that entire network of hotspots anymore, and they can just sort of talk to one another? And do we expect any sort of reliability increase, or is this just sort of like a nice to have for the validators?
Mark, do you want to take that?
If I'm not like a robot in my remote location, you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I think the question is very valid. I think we'll see a load reduction on validators when hotspots when they stop having to like emit so many blocks, so gossip blocks around to so many other hosts and having to like handle those P2P connections. They'll just be gossiping amongst the set of whatever 3,000 or so hotspots or validators that are out there. So that I think will help reduce some of the load, certainly the network load. But as the validator operators have seen, like today, like the receipts v2, which is part of this validator challenges, are creating an increased load as far as block production goes. And that's one of the things that we're spending time on helping to optimize. So hopefully one will help offset the other some, but there is obviously with in order to get the POC rewards, some more work has to be done, right? And that work is larger than we'd like it to be, but there's always going to be some, even if we optimize it better. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And to just sort of summarize and sort of echo back what you said to make sure I got it right, there will be a load taken off the validators, but that load that's being taken off is not necessarily the load that's causing the current challenges, which from my understanding are that upping the POC rate is going to require some optimizations within the validator software code in order to make the receipt validation less expensive so that we can ratchet up that POC rate. Right now, I believe the POC rate is at 700. Is it per minute?
Block.
Per block, exactly. Blocks, not clocks. I always have to remind myself. 700 per block. So roughly every minute when things are going well. And we're seeing about, 200, 250, I would say, POCs per block. So some of the work that's going in right now is to make sure that those receipts actually come back from the hotspots. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so that's step one. And then step 2 is basically optimizing the receipt validation so that the validators can handle a higher volume on their end overall.
Right. And we're doing that at the same time, because obviously as we fix connection issues between hotspots and both their notifying and challenging validators, the corresponding validator improvements have to like be in line, right? Otherwise we're in danger of having to lower the POC rate again, because validators can't deal with the increase in POC receipts. Right, with 700 per block and only 250 receipts or so. If that suddenly goes to like 400 receipts, then the increased load will cause more block production instability. So we'd have to either get performance up or the performance improvements in, or reduce the POC rate to like deal with that discrepancy.
And if we do have to do that, we would definitely communicate with the community to let them know exactly why and what the impact would be.
Right.
Yeah, just to put this all in context for everyone else who's not constantly watching dashboard.helium.com, like I know all of us up here are, the current POC rate, even with the sort of lower success rate of receipts received from hotspots, is pretty substantially close to what the rate was right before the light hotspots transition began. So we're kind of back where we are. We're back where we were.
Right, indeed. And a lot of the complaints or a lot of the issues that people in the community are seeing are the fact that those are not necessarily evenly distributed, because a percentage of hotspots is having issues with the validators that they're connecting to. And so they end up in this, what do they call, a dead or zombie state.
Right. It is the flatline state. And we are kind of tugging on a thread on that. I did mention it earlier. It's where one of the processes that's running in the hotspot just kind of silently dies and doesn't tell anyone. And so it does, and that stops the hotspot from being able to kind of connect to their durable validator and tell them what it saw, like it saw a beacon or it witnessed something. And so this is kind of why, and not scientifically proven, but anecdotally, as I've seen in the community, if you reboot the hotspot 25% of the time, it will come back to life. And just seeing that evidence and what we think may be happening with that underlying process kind of paints a little bit of a clearer picture for us.
So this is the rare moment where doing something actually has an effect potentially on your success. But of course, this is like a rare occasion. It's not going to be that way in the future. That the hotspot should, once we're at full light hotspot transition complete, self-govern itself and not need any sort of poking or prodding.
Of course, yes.
And if your hotspot is perfectly fine, it's mining, don't touch it.
Yeah, and so at the current rate of proof of coverage receipts, we're looking at maybe 40% of the network being challenged per day. And so as these bugs are fixed, we're going to go up above 100% per day, as in not necessarily that every hotspot is 100% reliably challenged every day, but that there is more than one receipt per hotspot on the network. So like if there's 800,000 hotspots, there will be 1 million receipts per day, or maybe 1.2 million. And that will mean on average, each hotspot is getting challenged more than once per day, which is what we want to see. And it's something we have not seen in a while due to the staggering speed of the growth of the network. Definitely had to throttle that down.
Yeah, we had that problem before light hotspots as well.
Right. So that's more of an optimization on the validator side of things. That's, I'm sure, all other things have taken away from that being the number one primary focus of everyone's time. Let's get some audience questions in here. We've got a bunch of hands raised, so I'm going to start inviting people up to the stage. We've got Dennis and Rennie B. Remember, if you want to speak, just raise your hand. There's a button that's called raise hand, and you'll be in the request queue. So we've got a lot of people queuing up here, so sooner rather than later, if you really want to ask a question. And just a reminder that this is being recorded. So if you don't want your voice recorded, that's totally fine. You can ask in the voice chat text channel. So welcome up to Dennis and Rennie B. I've just invited you both up to speak.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to hear all this information and really, I mean, this is less of a question, more of just a maybe I'll call it reinforcement from the community. That I'm aware, and so many of us are aware of the absolutely massive amount of work that's gone into this. And what really, stood out to me from this conversation and from this overview is that this work really is about, setting this project up and this network up for success. We're thinking in terms of years and being able to scale up past, 800,000 hotspots to millions. And being able to take a moment out of the work that's been going on to put it into context, to be able to convey it in a way that most of us, hopefully understand and really reassure that, these hiccups and the gaps and the struggles that some community members are really, focusing on, those concerns have been heard and they've been really folded into the roadmap. And yeah, this isn't a question. It's really just it's a round of Attagirls and Attaboys, and a big hearty thanks for all the hard work that's gone in and that's sure to come next.
Yeah, can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, first of all, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. My concern is, being a hotspot owner, definitely. I've heard the conversation, all the development and everything. I've been following all the Discord messages and everything as well, But definitely, everyone believes in the network. That's why we are still here. Otherwise, people have already started. Those who don't believe in it, they've already started selling the devices and running away from the project, But we do believe in the project. That's why we are still here. But at the end of the day, we all have invested something in the project, and we all are looking for some sort of outcome, some sort of income from that, I know I may sound stupid, but that's the fact, because that's why whoever is working on the project, either if it's a manufacturer, Helium itself as a network, or Hotspot, or Validator owners, we're all looking for a passive income or whatever you call it in return. But all being said, the main issue that we are having at this point is from Validator's end. Well, I don't think being hotspot owners, we should pay the price. Don't you think there should be some sort of, everyone is ready to wait, we all are waiting, but don't you think at the same time when we're waiting, hotspot owners should get a minimum reward in shape of their, just to appreciate their patience and their belief towards the project and keep providing the good coverage. Either if somebody has one hotspot or maybe 100, doesn't matter. But that's the only concern I have, to be honest. Thank you so much.
I could start to answer that question. I think ultimately you were asking, should hotspot owners get some kind of compensation for something like this, which is like an outage or seemingly like a partial outage of the network. Ultimately, we've never done that before as a network. We are only, not even 3 years into this network, and we kind of think of this network as a much longer project. I do want to reiterate something that I said earlier, which is, we appreciate and understand, and we appreciate the patience, and we understand the frustration when you have, a week or two or whatever of real, downtime, or what appears to be downtime for a particular hotspot. But, I think ultimately we as a core team want to take a longer view on this. And that's sort of the way that we hope that other folks in the community also would feel and feel like they're building a network that lasts decades, not weeks. So I think that's sort of the start of my answer there. Happy to get sort of ideas from other folks on the team or from the mods or others.
Haroon, do you feel like your question was answered?
To be honest, not really, because the thing is, again, the problem is not from you guys. You guys are still working hard. Well, I can see from your end that when you guys are asking validators to open port 8080, you guys been asking them from how long, from the day one. But just because of, I don't want to say laziness, but because of their ignorance, because of their mistake, we as in hotspot owners, we are paying the price, which we shouldn't be. Do you get it? I know they have invested more money because they have, more tokens in the wallet and stuff. But at the end of the day, we all are here for something. Nobody's working on this project for free. Nobody has invested on this project because they want something better for the humankind. Nobody's working on this project for that reason. Everyone is working for money. That's a fact. But yeah, that's fine. If nothing can happen, what can I say? It was just a concern being a hotspot owner. And yeah, we just
So I do want to make clear on the point that you're
have to wait. So we'll just wait. Thank you.
I do want to make clear that the current issue right now is not to do with validators. The majority of validators have updated and have done so in a timely manner. So I think, we should kind of not point fingers at one party or another and just sort of appreciate that we're all in this together. The fixes that we are looking at right now will be in a hotspot release. So it's not even I'm using bunny ears, not a validator problem. So I just want to make clear that, we should not point fingers. We should not say one group is taking advantage of another group. We're all in this together.
Alrighty, thanks for the question and for team members for answering that. Dennis, go ahead with your question, and then I'm going to look in the voice chat text and maybe take a couple questions there.
I just want to say hi from sunny Croatia, and basically you answered all my questions during this chat. And as a hotspot owner, I don't know, I'm happy with everything that's happening. I know there is no rewards last few days, but patience is the key. So hopefully after everything is done, all your hard work is appreciated. We'll go forward from this and enjoy, right?
Was there a question, or? By the way, I said wrong.
No. I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work, guys. So just thanks for everything and keep on what you're doing. So thank you so much.
All right, great. Just to be clear, I said the wrong channel name. Excuse me on that. I said voice chat text. It's AMA questions. That is where you should be asking questions. I see some questions here. Should we reset or reboot if experiencing issues? That has been addressed. From Chris Bruce, we have for Q&A, when $99 miners, aka when will Rust miner be fully ready for production? ETA?
So we'll need to get Rust Gateway POC working and tested, and then it's up to each individual manufacturers to take that, run their own testing, and start their own lines. $99 is not promised. It's not something the Helium network can control, nor the core team can control. It is up to each manufacturer to kind of price their hardware based on the economics that make sense to them.
And then the next question is there some kind of a course that could teach us some basic programming for testing so we can help the network? There are a lot of programmers that could help us improve.
Oh, I don't know. Learn some Erlang, I think. What's that book called?
There's learning some Erlang. I mean, I think the other thing that's potentially useful is for folks to actually use the network, right? The proof of coverage ultimately is the bootstrap incentive for creating network coverage, but using the network is really what takes provides real kind of value for the network. And so build a sensor, use your hotspot, so one thing that I have in my house, not to dox myself too much, is like I'm teaching my kids how to plant tomatoes, and they have little sensors, and they have a way to see like, hey, like Dad, like we need to water the plants, right? And a little screen. So that's something that I worked on personally to use the network that we have. So, if the network is working and the data is transferring, this network is useful, right? Because it even looks like a small sensor like mine is just like one of many. And that's what this network is for.
Yep, definitely can attest to that. God, this is just a fire hose of questions. Maybe some people should start jumping in here and answering it in text if they can do it at the same time. Why are the current POC rewards so low, and yet there are a lot of miners offline? Where do those generated HNT go?
The HNT goes to the hotspots that are updated to the latest version have synced past the block height where we activated light hotspots, has connected to a validator that it can send receipts to. They're the ones earning H&T rewards. And I think I checked on the stat today. It was about 450,000 hotspots earning rewards in the last 24 hours. So the pie size is still the same. It's just that these 450,000 hotspots are getting a larger piece of the pie. Those are where the rewards go, to the hotspot owners.
Excellent. Gonna get some more voice questions here. I'm inviting up Mirage V and Raynuke. I don't know. Welcome up.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to see, as a result of the P2P issues that we had prior to moving to light hotspots, there were a number of miners that were, unable to communicate back to the challengers, effectively resulting in failed participation in those challenges. Since we moved to light hotspots, I'm now expecting that we're going to have much better connectivity to those challengers and would effectively mean that more miners are now participating in those challenges. Is there a plan to increase the number of receipts currently at 14 per challenge that's chosen for the rewards in order to have more miners participating in the challenge process?
So I think you kind of touched on a couple of things. So I'm going to touch on the first thing, where in the past, the P2P connection issues caused a lot of hotspots to kind of not earn any rewards because they were either behind relays or on open ports or whatever it is. Arman actually had put together a really great dashboard to look at how many hotspots have kind of benefited from the switch to light hotspot and have been able to challenge and participate in POC. And that number is 47,000. So these hotspots have come back from the full hotspot coma. To answer your second question, when are we going to increase the witnesses per challenge? I think what we want to do first, before we kind of look at that, is to get some sort of stability on the number of receipts sent back per challenges in every block. And I think the 14 witnesses per challenge is there so that we don't create... So we keep the block times consistent, because as more witnesses come back in on a challenge, it is more computational work. And we want to make sure that there's just enough so that we can confirm that the hotspot is where it says it is and keep the network up and healthy so that we can continue transmitting packets, which is what this network is used for.
Also consider in the grand scheme of things, like what does increasing the number of witnesses for a particular challenge do purposefully for the network, right? If 14 people saw a beacon, how does it help that 20 or 30 or 40 saw them? It helps some, and so there's obviously a balance to be made there, and some argument for increasing it. But I don't know, and I'm saying this carefully, right? I'm not making promises one or the other. I don't know that increasing it to like 100 would actually do anything substantial for the network beyond increasing, block validation times tremendously.
So I can certainly see where, increasing the block times we don't want to do. We want to try to keep that. But one of the things that it would do for the network is for those hotspots that are seeing these flat lines, as you hear them called, where basically they go for long amounts of time without, any rewards. This would at least let them see some of those rewards, even though it may be the same amount of total reward. It's just split among more miners. It would at least show them that there is some activity, because right now that's the problem. Go ahead.
I think that's you're describing two slightly different things. I think the current dead hotspot isn't able to submit witness receipts either. Like it's having trouble communicating to either the durable or the challenging validator, and that's why it's perceived to be dead.
Agree, but I think when you have hotspots that are operating correctly and you're seeing, if you look at what's coming across the radio versus what's actually being what you're being rewarded for, those are very different numbers.
Sure. The point is that the hotspot that is going to get rewarded is the hotspot that can communicate its witness, right, to its witness report to the challenging validator. And if it can't do that, like these dead hotspots can, it doesn't matter that you increase the number of witnesses to 1,000, because that hotspot still can't communicate to its durable validator if it's dead.
So take the dead ones out. What does that mean for all the ones that do work?
They would get more rewards for essentially adding no additional value to the network.
Yeah, I think there's sort of two parts to this, and yeah, removing the dead ones are definitely important when we're and that's sort of what we're actively working on right now from a client perspective. As far as increasing the number of witnesses per proof of coverage challenge, it is useful from a kind of like a telemetry perspective, right? Like knowing that there is some on-chain proof that some witness was received by a challenger and it wasn't censored, and well, all that. The downside of increasing the number of witnesses is sort of validation, right? So today, validation happens at the challenger when the transaction is put together and submitted to the consensus group. It happens in the consensus group when there's when it's included into a block, and then it happens again at rewards time to make sure that the challenge should be rewarded. And the way to really hopefully improve that, and sorry about those notifications. I should turn this off. The way to sort of improve that would potentially be considering other ways to gather that data, right? And one thing that we've certainly talked about in the past is to do that off chain, but that would be a sort of a change to the network and the way the network works. And that's something worth considering. And we actually are considering that strongly for 5G POC, since there's a lot of other things that need to be oracled back to the network. And applying that same methodology for LoRaWAN POC might be an interesting path forward. And but it's work to be done and work to be sort of designed. But I think the other thing to think about, like from a telemetry perspective or like diagnostic perspective, is we used to have this feature called discovery mode. It had some issues that we had to, and that's why we have to turn it off. And we should, and working with manufacturers to bring that back is something that we've thought about, and it's something that we should prioritize. And we will. I hope that answers some of the bits of your question, Raj.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Ray, you're up.
Oh yeah, hey. I'm a pretty hands-on guy, and I would actually really like to see what kind of devices my hotspots are servicing. I mean, like sensor types or etc. Will that be a feature at any time in the future?
I can take that. So quick answer is no, only because the device users are sending encrypted packets. So this is sort of safer for all participants on the network, right? Where it cannot be intercepted and the wrong data can't be injected to kind of fool the recipient on the other end. So there's really no way for you to tell what type of sensors are sending packets through your hotspots. And there is no future that we think this would be possible.
All right. Thank you.
Alrighty, great. Let's do 2 more voice questions, and then I will go back to text. A reminder: some of our Nova Labs folks up here have maybe 8 minutes left, so we'll see where we will go from there. But I want to get in. Please, the next 2 people, try to keep your questions brief, no multiple questions, so we can get in some voice questions and some text questions while our Nova team members are still around. Thank you. And I'm inviting Mijels, and Daweths up.
Hi. So I did have 2 questions, but I'll just point out my major question is, I would like to know if the Helium or the Nova team has any incentive or any idea on what they want to do with the unused compute power on the full hotspots. Like, are they interested in doing a Helium VPN or any other type of cryptocurrency or decentralized type of thing? And the second question just to ask was about the validators being centralized. Do they feel that they're being centralized? Because it takes a lot of capital to be a validator.
Yeah, so I'll save the validator question for some of the other channels, maybe token economics or the validator channel. But as far as the compute that's available, I mean, certainly I've thought about, what we could run on it. Having a VPN would be really interesting, not great for off the grid miners and not great but really good for folks that are, maybe running this in their home and they have really good stable backhaul. We've certainly talked to other teams about this. And, I think the HIP 51 framework really could be interesting as a way for other projects to work with hotspot manufacturers to install their software. Ultimately, the Helium miner is a container that runs on, and all the hotspots are running a Linux. And so, if you can build a container that can be deployed, and you can work with a manufacturer to deploy another kind of project on there, given the new capacity that's available, there's a lot of Raspberry Pi 3s and 4s out there. That could be really interesting. And if you know of any projects like that, send them our way. Happy to talk to them.
Thank you.
Alrighty, let's get to some text questions there. It's just an absolute fire hose of text questions here. Let me just try to see if I can find one that's juicy here. For the miners that are offline, for example, for over 6 months, would it be possible to remove them from the network until they turn back on?
No. The blockchain is immutable.
Right. So they can't be removed, but they're not hurting anything. They're there, they're offline.
Yeah.
They're not affecting reward scale or transmit
They're
scale.
not considered.
Correct.
They're not considered for challenges, right? And they're not considered for rewards as part of that. So if all you're talking about is should they not be displayed on the map? Sure. I believe that may already be the case. If not, it can be.
Let's see. The 1353 update on the 13th, I'm not sure what that's referring to, mentioned hotspots being able to pick quote unquote better validators. Where do we stand on this and how does it work?
Oh, I answered that in the channel too, but basically we now do a heartbeat check to the durable validator that the light hotspot is connected to. And if it fails n number of times, it disconnects and goes and finds a new validator.
All right, let's see. When can we expect the first set of light hotspots to be approved for sale?
I think we kind of answered that with Chris's question, but we need to get Gateway RS POC working and pushed out into a release for manufacturers to take, and then it's up to them when they want to get these hotspots for sale.
And remember, that is not Nova Labs that has oversight over that. Is the MCC, formerly known as the MOC, the Helium Foundation's Manufacturer Compliance Committee. Question, why can't we be connected to multiple validators at the same time?
I mean, you could. It doesn't really help because you're still gonna be you would add more load to the validators, and two, the underlying you're sort of skirting around the underlying issue. It may work as a workaround. You'd have to disambiguate the two, since one validator can be further ahead than the other. So then you receive two challenges at different times. The disambiguating the multiple connections gets really difficult. And while it may be a workaround, I would rather fix the underlying issue that causes issues with the durable validator and client and miner communication to begin with.
All right, let's see. We got 2 minutes here. I'm going to invite up a couple more people. Let's get Mexi and Stefan up here just to finish off some questions for the period that we know the Nova team will be here. We're going to continue the AMA. Nova team members may pop in and out after 1 minute or 2 minutes from now, but I'm going to continue this as long as I can because I think we're getting a lot of good questions in here, getting a lot of good discussion. So anyway, Mexi, welcome to the stage.
First and foremost, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for keeping us updated through this update. I really appreciate that you guys are taking the time to post the updates on Discord. I know there's a lot of other projects that go in the dark, and you guys have been keeping us updated, so I appreciate that immensely. I don't know if this is the place to ask my question. All I wanted to know is there a plan in place to get more companies to use the network?
I think we should defer that question and just focus on light hotspots, but the short answer is yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah, not really light hotspot related. Trying to get
that was my fault. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Yep, no worries. Mad, I'm going to invite you up as well. 2 Mads, actually. Going to invite you both up, see if we can get a last-minute question in here. Hello.
Hello, hi there. I'm here in the UK, and I've recently been attached to the Helium network for about 2 months now, going through all the different rigmaroles of setting up the antenna and the miner and things like that. But recently I've been looking into the hexes around my local area, and I've noticed a miner pop up in my hex, and it's lowered down my transmit scale down to 0.83. And I know people out there have a worse case scenario than I do, but I'm noticing that he's not receiving any witnesses, he's not broadcasting or anything like that, but he's scaled down my transmit scale. Over time, would that particular miner be removed from my hex if he's not actually transmitting or anything like that?
So if it's a dead hotspot, it will no longer affect your transmit scale, and dead means offline. That does not necessarily reference the hotspots that are experiencing flatlining right now. That's related to the issue that we're trying to fix. And also the transmit scale does not affect your earnings in the exact way that you think it does. It has to do with the earnings of the hotspots that witness you, and their earnings get scaled down. So let's keep that in mind as well.
Okay, thank you. And also as well, I've noticed in the US, I've found that, quite a few people as well with their miners are able to receive a lot more witnesses than I'm in the UK. Is there some level of scaling out where validators will start sending out challenges out to other areas inside the UK for it to speed up a bit faster than it is doing right now?
We're not favoring one region over another. It's merely just chance. What's what you're seeing?
It's just chance. Okay, thank you. And all the help you've been doing recently. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your question. The other Mad, ask quickly. Team members may have to drop, but see if you can get your question in.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to ask, I just received my miners one day before the light update. And since that day, both of my miners haven't been having any activity. What is a suggestion for people that are in the same situation like me? I mean, I'm fully synced and online, but they have no activity at all now for probably 7-8 days.
Yeah, so I think I addressed this a couple of times, and I'll address it in an announcement. But what you're seeing is something that we know is happening to about like a good half of the network. And so this is untested, unverifiable, but if you reboot your hotspot 25% of the time, it may come back to life. So that's my only recommendation for now that you can actually do until our bug fix is out.
Okay, but if I understood correctly, after when like the light hotspot is working correctly, let's say, it won't matter anymore. I mean, if you're how do you call it? If you need to resync and all that, that wouldn't matter anymore. If I'm correct.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
That won't matter, and you won't have to manually reboot, like for suggesting now.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the excellent final voice question for the moment that was very directly related to light hotspots, which I appreciate. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a transition now. So Nova team members, all very busy, have things to do. I really want to thank, I know Hashcode already had to leave, so thank you to Mad Ninja and Cokes. Thank you so much for being here and answering the community's questions directly. I'm sure it's much appreciated. What we're going to enter now is sort of more of a moderator and community mentor led AMA discussion. Nova team members may pop in and out as they are available. So I've gotten word that, some of them may be popping back in at certain points. I'm going to try to keep this going as long as I feel that it's productive and that people are enjoying it and we're getting some good questions. And I'd like to invite any moderator or community mentor. I'm sure we can answer not all the questions in the same level of detail, but I think we all know quite a bit about light hotspots and this transition. I know I certainly have been glued to my screen this entire time. So let's continue on with that in mind. If the mods and mentors aren't here, I'll just try to answer as many questions as I can myself. And great, we got waveform up here now. Excellent. And also, I'd like excellent. All right, this is looking great. We got Digerati, Fizzy, awesome. Devo, welcome everybody. You all just AP. Wow, we got the whole crew. Excellent. Amazing. So I'm inviting up Ballstag and Alan IO.
Hey everyone. Saw some good discussion, participated in some discussion in the POC channel. And hearing the developers talk, it sounds like the focus for the gRPC failures is on the hotspot side. Has anyone been able to look to see if there's an even distribution of those gRPC failures across all of the validators? I know that somebody was able to show that challenge rewards across the validators were evenly distributed. But it sure looks like that the beacons at the hotspots are not evenly distributed, and was wondering if there was any correlation between those hotspots and their connected validators.
I think since we don't have anyone up here who's in the weeds right now from the Nova team, I don't even know if we can answer that. If anyone on this stage has dug into that yourself, please speak. Speak now.
Yeah, I was hoping to find to generate a query in the Dewey ETL, but I just don't think the data exists because the heartbeat connections are not captured on the blockchain. So, but if somebody tried looking into that and found something, I'd be interested.
I think I may have seen, I don't know if it was you or someone else asking about the ETL and certain things aren't captured. It's all captured in the transactions table, but some of the other tables may have been maybe lagging, the like generated tables. But look in the transactions table, all the heartbeats should be there and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just not sure the heartbeat transaction though actually lists the connected hotspots. I think there's one part of it that has like a GWS reconnection, but I'm not sure what that is.
No, I think you're right. I don't think that's captured in the on-chain data.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Alan.
All right, thanks.
I'm also going to invite up Chickhum and Fred Lux while Alan figures out audio issues.
Hey, thanks, guys. I had noticed, especially, I'm in a very highly saturated area with a lot of hotspots, and the ones who are still witnessing are the ones with really good setups. And a lot of them have been witnessing consistently, but almost all of them have been over 10,000 blocks since beaconing. I would assume this is an issue with the update, and I'm just wondering if we know the reason for that and when we can expect that beacons will start going out again.
So because the challenge rate is currently so low, as I mentioned much earlier, you may not have been here, but only around 40% of the hotspots on the network are being challenged in any given day. And that's what the team's working on improving right now. So that could be bad luck. It's also possible that if your hotspot is not past the light hotspots block, which is about a week ago, that it is not fully transitioned to light hotspot yet. And you know, you're going to be able to force that a little later when the transition is complete, when there's no longer syncing. Depending on your manufacturer, you might get stuck there. But if your hotspot is past that block and is transitioned to a light hotspot, then it's basically luck at this point, whether or not your hotspots will be challenged in any given day.
Okay, understood. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Can anybody remember what the actual block number is in the team?
I have it actually written down. Let me pull that up. It is 1350844. Some of the hotspots that were relayed should be beaconing more because they're no longer relayed, in case anyone couldn't hear that. Fred, if you're here, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for this AMA. It's really wonderful to hear that. My question is, before the light hotspot upgrade, there was a need to have a VPN for not being relayed. And now you don't need any VPN anymore. But this, I think, makes a new problem because of the spoofers. Here in Germany, I see many cities all over. There are spoofers, and they are coming from far east, maybe thousands of kilometers. And from now on, nobody of these spoofers has a need to create a VPN for not being relayed. So it's much easier for spoofers to spoof our cities. What will be done to solve this problem?
I think any questions related to spoofing, I'm going to kick to the next AMA or a future AMA because that's not the exact topic here. But to kind of address your question, you're right. There's some changes in how, IP addresses, the importance of IP addresses and incoming connections in the Light Hotspots update. And that does sort of change some of the dynamics around people who may be running illicit hotspot farms. And I'd love to invite any of the community mentors to add anything briefly that you might want to add to that. Alrighty. Well, in that case, we will move on. Thanks, Fred. I'm going to try to get to some text questions here. Let's see. I love this question. How does one become a community mentor? I actually don't know. Could one of our community mentors, I know it's not related to light hotspots, but briefly say, how do you do that?
frankly, you just answered a lot of questions. It would just happened one day. I mean, I'm not even sure who exactly did it.
Basically, you just want to be throughout the community, answering questions, just being generally helpful. Dedicating some time to either general questions and answers, hotspot issues, being in there. A lot of newbies come in with just simple questions too, like things like port forwarding, syncing questions, things like that. Just generally being helpful. And us mods, we kind of linger around and we're always watching and seeing who's being helpful. And sometimes you, just like Elon Tusk there, you just get sporadically upgraded to mentor.
Yeah, it's been really heartening to watch how many new mentors have been added in the past, like, let's say 6 months. The community mentorship has grown so much, and y'all are super active and in there answering all the questions. So much appreciation to our community mentors. You guys do so much good work. Let's get some more voice questions. I invited up Epic. Welcome.
Hiya. I have a question regarding a notification that came around prior. It was regarding not to play around with the system config file. I was just wondering, what is it that playing around with that file does? And does it just make you flatline, or does it do something worse?
Well, it really depends on what you do within the sysconfig file. There's a lot of settings in there. Some of them are related to, for example, seed nodes or other configurations that might be critical for light hotspots. So, it's impossible to say what any specific modification that you may have done will do, but suffice to say, if you modify certain things in there, it could break your hotspot's ability to communicate with the validators and complete proof of coverage.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can add on to that. Just when you do that, you enforce some settings that we may need to change, like the seed validators or just about anything else. And it's not like you could completely flatline yourself. We're not, as a dev team, when we make changes to the sysconfig file for the image, we're trying to put in specific things. And if you're overwriting it in your sysconfig file, your version's going to take effect. And it's nearly impossible to predict what's going to happen on your hotspot if you're modifying it differently from how we've tested it and deployed it. So that's the real risk. There's certain things that are likely probably never to affect it, but others could. And we just don't take the time to figure out what people are overwriting with. We can only work with the sysconfigs that we have. So you're on your own when you do that, essentially.
Yep. You're jailbreaking the old cell phone there, and your warranty is expired. Not literally, but figuratively. Thank you, Germ, for adding that additional context there. And Pensis, you're up next.
Hi, guys. So I've been following along in the blockchain chat, which is really interesting to follow, actually. I've seen that on the test network, there's been some issues with that not being as representative, and obviously it's difficult to replicate the scale that the actual network has. Is there any work being done on that to try and make sure that that reference environment is more representative, as much as possibly can be done, of the full-scale network?
I could take that. Oh, yes, we have started doing that, as you've seen, trying to scale up at least as possible. We had a discussion yesterday about what those scaling parameters need to be. What can we realistically scale up and expect to have it be representative of the full network, and what things just won't scale up easily. And the one thing that's very hard to scale is simply the size of the blocks. On mainnet, block sizes are much bigger. Even if we have only 2,000 hotspots on testnet and like 8 validators, that ratio of hotspots to validators might be representative of mainnet, but it won't be generating the same number of blocks, and the load to verify those blocks is not the same. So that is the biggest challenge, and trying to figure out how important that is. But we're certainly trying to look at those areas and ramp those up, and do some real heavy load testing on testnet. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Let's see. I've invited Haroon back up and Royal Graph X.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Somebody mentioned IP addresses related to spoofing, but did you say that something with IP address, either filtering or whatever, was implemented with light hotspots? And my question then would be, I have some of my fleet on VPNs, to get around relayed status. Has anybody seen that removing those VPNs actually helps their POC activity?
I can answer the first part is that I don't think there has been anything added specifically in light hotspot mode that involves IP addresses. If anything, it'd probably be even less restrictions now, which is what the other question poser was saying, is that now that there are less restrictions, what do you expect is going to happen in the spoofers? So again, quoting from me, and please, anybody who knows better, correct me. I don't think there are any additional or changes to the way IP addresses ultimately affect your earnings in the system with light hotspot.
All right, thanks.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Go. Yeah. So I was just wondering, with the move to light hotspots and everything, I was wondering if I could get a quick refresher of how are earnings and how is all the data being transmitted, just like from a start to finish standpoint, right? Like, how is a block created, and then how is it sent to all our miners? Do we send information, place that stuff? How is sent to validators? What do they do on their end? And then how is finally like rewards? I just kind of wanted a quick refresh on how everything works, with in terms of like being on light hotspots now that we don't have everything synced ourselves,
I think that might be a little bit outside of the scope of this specific AMA, but we do have, I recorded a podcast episode with Coco, who was up here briefly and seems to be gone now. You can search for it. It's called the Hotspot Podcast. The episode is called Light Hotspots Activate. And Coco goes into very extreme but clear detail about how all of that stuff you just asked about works. So it's about maybe a 30-40 minute episode. So I think reviewing that would probably be the best option.
I bet. Appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you. Haroon, welcome back.
The chance you revealed, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. So yeah, my quick question is gonna be related to the relay issue that we've got. Yeah, definitely. We do have some people who do spoofing. We do have. Personally, I have a couple of hotspots that are based in a mobile location. I've just used broadband, like mobile broadband connections, to give, to provide connectivity to those. So the thing is, if you go to Explorer, it says active now, but on app, because hotspots are from Blockcat, it still says relay. So do we still have to worry about relay issue, or is that we just need to forget about it and like hotspot? Whenever this upgrade is finished, we don't need to face any. We won't face any problem with it. Can someone please answer that if possible? And thank you so much for all the hard work and help, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So relayed status. Jerm, do you want to answer that? I knew you were going to pop up on that.
No, I was just going to do it if you weren't. I think you've got to handle it. I'll jump in if you need it.
Sure. Relayed status is no longer going to be relevant when light hotspot transition is complete. We're in sort of a midway point right now. Relay status is mostly not relevant, but your hotspot is still following the blockchain in the case that the network needs to be reverted from light hotspots to the regular full hotspot mode. As things look now, I personally think it's very unlikely that will happen. But, I'm not on the Nova core team. We don't know what might come up. So there is a small chance. In that case, having your hotspot not on relayed status could give you a small advantage if there needed to be a revert. But other than that, going forward, you can think about relayed status as not mattering anymore, not being important anymore. And I think I'll also toss in a question that I saw in the text channel, which is, are there any disadvantages now if you have a cell connection without VPN instead of a static IPv4? Your incoming port, your incoming IP address, any incoming traffic is no longer relevant, which makes that VPN tunneling no longer relevant. So you don't need to tunnel in order to get your ports open or anything like that. Port opening is no longer relevant for the future of light hotspots. So yes, any sort of VPN stuff you're doing, no longer relevant, no longer necessary.
There was a question also from Blizzard where he asked, is a public static IP address to be required?
Same answer. Your public IP address is no longer relevant since all of the communication with light hotspots is outbound from your hotspot to the validator. So you no longer need to have any sort of special setup for your public IP, for your ports, nothing like that. It's quite literally as if you just are browsing the web. If web browsing works over whatever connection you're talking about, then your hotspot will also work as expected. That's kind of the level of simplicity we've now reached with this Light Hotspots update. All right, and we got some more. Look at all these wonderful voice questions. Welcome up, Want Clue and Mosey.
I just wanted to thank you all for all the updates again. And my question, I think, has been answered, but it's regarding the port forwarding. Should we remove the port forwarding yet, or wait for the full update to be, implemented on the network? And thank you.
So let me just be clear. Despite what I just said, there's absolutely no harm in keeping port forwarding. Like, you're not going to lose anything by doing that. So if you want to opt for the most cautious possible approach, you can keep your ports forwarded. At some point, it will no longer be relevant. For now, I'd say the relevance is small, but not zero. But yes, if you want to keep your ports forwarded, no problem. If you want to get rid of them, no problem. It's really, it doesn't matter either way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mosey. Want Clue, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey there. I'm kind of wondering about what will happen to the SD card space. Let's assume that we do not need to download the blockchain any longer, and some manufacturers are manufacturing hotspots with eMMC and an external SD card. And I'm kind of wondering, are we going to be able to unplug this external SD card from our hotspot if we don't need to download the blockchain any longer?
Well, that's a tough one. It really depends on how the manufacturer is using that SD card. They may be using it for their OTA process. There may be hundreds of reasons. There's no guarantee that just because it has an SD card slot and that it's being used necessarily for the blockchain data. So I'd be careful assuming that. What we can say is that once we stop having gateways, hotspots, follow the chain, then all the wear and tear, and all of that data being written to and read from either of these storage devices, wherever it is, will go way down. Probably all that will remain is still things like logs. They'll still be written, so there'll be some activity. But we don't have like a standard saying that the blockchain gets written to SD card and everything else is on the eMMC. Some hotspots don't even have SD cards, so they're pure eMMC. So I don't know whether the SD card will still be needed or not. You probably should check with your hotspot maker.
All right, thank you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for that question. I'm going to invite, anyone else who wants to speak up in a moment, but I just wanted to give a shout out to our wonderful community mentors and Nova team members fielding questions in the AMA questions text channel, specifically Keenan, Jade, Angry Bear, and Waveform. So many questions, my goodness. You guys are really killing it. I'm going to read a few more text questions for now. Then we can get to some more voice questions. Let's see. Will miners run cooler after we are all light?
I mean, the answer is pretty theoretically yes. I run a hotspot here at the house with some lab equipment. I can tell you when you're not having to follow the chain and you're just simply in light mode, which we are not fully there yet. So if anybody has a hotspot and doing the same test, please be aware. We're still having every hotspot follow the chain. When you stop doing that, the current draw does go down. So current draw goes down, voltage remains the same. The engineering tells you that the power draw is going down. If the power draw goes down, the heat should go down because most of that heat comes from power being dissipated in your hotspot. So the answer is yeah, it should go down. It'd be really fun to see exactly how much. And but that is one of the points of light hotspots in general, is that it uses less power and bandwidth and therefore should be cooler.
Just on that note, Jerm, as well. So I remember doing some tests myself back when hotspots were doing consensus. And I don't know if you can confirm this or not, but when a hotspot was in consensus, it was running at about 12 to 15 watts. When it wasn't in consensus, it was about 6 to 7 watts. I'm assuming it should drop to half that. Is that correct?
See, that's where we get into numbers, and I hesitate to predict it. So
theoretically, I mean, the CPU should be using 20% of its power or something like that.
Yeah, I have to do back of the envelope math. Gotcha. Even in chain following mode, we're not verifying the chain, so it is downloading and writing these blocks. It is updating its ledger, at least internally. still, and that takes some computation. So I don't think it's going to be quite the drop from 15 to 5, which is again going from consensus to non-consensus. Now that's at 5. Let's hope for half. There's some minimum power that's just used up by simply being on. The radio, especially if you have an older radio, an SX1301, which you'd have to have an original helium hotspot or some other manufacturers. That one does consume a bit of power too, and doesn't change under light hotspots. So the risk of sticking my foot in my mouth, I can't give a good number, but I should go back and test it. But the answer is it should.
Every manufacturer is also different as well, aren't they? So I know that the power jaw is slightly different between, say, a Nebra and a Linkstar and a rack. They do all vary slightly.
Yeah, even more variables to confound the simple answer.
If any of you would like to put together a rough estimate of how much power, maybe a conservative estimate of how much power could be saved by this, like when the light hotspot transition completes and the hotspots are no longer following the chain, I think that would be really cool, and I will happily retweet it. It's funny, we're so focused on like the hardcore engineering and like solving problems here that we don't even really focus on the sort of environmental, green aspect of this transition. Like, I don't think I've seen anyone mention it really, but it's pretty clear that there's going to be like a lot of kilowatt hours saved by this change pretty much immediately. So that's kind of interesting to think about. All right. I promised that I would answer this question via voice. So how long do we expect to be in this lowered witness state? Yeah. So you can follow along the current development progress in the blockchain channel. And the team is currently working on fixing a bug where miners are not delivering their receipts reliably. And so you're going to be getting more witnesses when the receipts are delivered more reliably. So basically more witnesses after there are more beacons. Right now, we're in a state where we have roughly as much proof of coverage activity as happened right before the light hotspot transition. So we're in a decent state, but we want to get to ideally like 2 to 3x that. And so that is exactly what the team is working on now. There are optimizations on both the miner side with fixing the receipt delivery and the validator side with optimizing the receipt validation and processing that are really going to help increase the number of beacons and thus the number of witnesses and just overall activity that every hotspot is experiencing. What is the plan to avoid that a validator manipulates the game and somehow makes its own hotspots to be the only one who receives challenges or can send receipts? What is the plan to punish the validators that are not compliant and don't make necessary changes?
I can't answer all of that, but one thing that we haven't made really clear, and I did answer this in the AMA, is that when, validators are they're providing service to each hotspot, and the hotspot can't really tell what's going on with the blockchain under the light regime, and it has to trust the validator. And we do want to make certain that that trust is warranted and can be inspected. So when your hotspot asks a question of a validator and receives an answer, that answer is signed by the validator and could be used later in a scheme, kind of like we have state channels, which is an off-chain mechanism for doing things on-chain in such a way that if there is a problem, it can be brought back into the full public view and everyone can see it. So the idea here, it's not in effect, but there should be enough records in there that if a validator starts misbehaving in a way, starts particularly handing out fake reports to hotspots, because it's signing each of these, it can be proven that it did so, and we could have a slashing mechanism or punishment scheme that is blockchain observable. And again, that is one of the big things I always have in a blockchain, is to make certain that whatever actions you take, everyone can see clearly the evidence and take action. So it's the mechanics are in there. The framework is in there. The mechanics aren't, as far as I believe. But that's part of the design and part of that answering that question. A lot of the other things you'd ask are kind of vague and a little bit harder to answer, but there is some thought into this. This is something that we think about, as especially me as a paranoid person. Like, how would you game the system in that way? So the answer is this attestation. If you want to look at it, well, maybe we should do an engineering blog post about it.
Wonderful, great answer. Welcome up to the stage, Doomsday and Lopez.
Yes, thank you. In behalf of the Cryptosaurios Spanish-spoken community, we would like to ask, or first, I would like to thank to all the team for all the effort to bring this very important transition. Also, I would like to ask if in the future we can see some kind of a canary network where the new change of the network can be tested in a more strong or realistic environment to avoid the issues that we are having with this very important change. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my audio cut out on my end for a minute there, so I didn't hear your whole question. If someone else heard, could you please answer? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in on this one. Repeating the question so you can hear it, Arman, is there a way we can have a canary network that can be used to test these important changes before they go out onto mainnet, right? And so the answer is yes. That's the point of a network we call testnet. And we ran this software as much as we could on testnet for months, and trying every change, looking at it. It's becoming clear that, we really need to ramp it up, make it more realistic, even more heavily loaded. And that's hard to do with 800,000 hotspots on the real chain. And even if at best we can maybe get a few thousand, we have to generate hotspots on the testnet. And that can be hard, especially on our own. So yeah, go ahead.
I had a thought the other day. I had a shower thought the other day, and it was around, obviously once we make the transition fully, we'll have more compute power on the miner. Would you see it maybe theoretically possible to run or opt in to testnet if manufacturers were okay with providing that as an option? Do you reckon that's even possible?
I mean, certainly. I'd want it to be on the choice of the owner, really. Manufacturer has to be involved, but like each owner. And the question is, how do we incentivize people to do that? There are tokens on the testnet. They're called testnet tokens, and we kind of jokingly trade them around. Like, oh, I'll give you 10,000 TNT if you turn on my hotspot that I hosted over there at your house.
So I can see I can see the idea as being quite useful. Like if a situation like the moment where we haven't got a reliable testnet environment at the moment, that the Helium community would tick a button, in an app next to their hotspot and opt into that environment to help produce more reliable results. It's just a thought, but yeah.
Yeah, I like it. But the short answer, Lopez Boyer, is yes, there is a canary network. It's called the testnet. And if you want to follow on, there's actually a specific channel for it. And it needs to be stronger. It is really hard to test something at this scale in a mini scale. But I hope that answers the question.
Excellent. Lopez, thank you for the question. So Jeff, I'm going to invite you up to ask a question.
Before Jeff gets into that, I wanted to circle back around to the question about the challenges. Like, what if a validator wants to manipulate a challenge to benefit their hotspot or to benefit themselves? And so with HIP 55, we actually made it more secure when it comes to challenges. And the reason for that is that the validators produce proof of coverage keys, which is a public-private key for each challenge that they propose to the blockchain. And then that happens every 100 blocks via the heartbeat. And then the consensus group takes that and selects it kind of implicitly because it uses block hash, the block hash to select from that list that's being built of all the proof of coverages keys. And so if you wanted to kind of pick your hotspot, you would have to come up with cryptographic keys and align it with the block hash 100 to 200 blocks from the time that produced that key to select the hotspot that you want to challenge. So it's very difficult now to kind of get that because it's a kind of a delay. Like what we're doing was proposed hundreds of blocks ago, and then is now being implemented on.
Great. Thank you for that additional detail, Anthony. Jeff, you're up.
All right, here we go. We there?
Yes.
All right. First off, I want to say thank you. Many of the people on stage have helped me tremendously. I'm new since March, and my eyes have been open with many of the people on stage here, and I want to thank them personally for their help. My question is, I have several hotspots deployed now, and what I'm seeing is half of them are getting challenged multiple times over the last week, where the other half are still comatose, and they've been reset and they've been rebooted and still the same result. So my question is this: is it possible that hotspots that have been challenged are more likely to be challenged again, thus leaving the other ones comatose?
I would say that it's possible, but it's more likely that there's something else going on there. There could be so many different things that could lead to that outcome. So we've kind of gone a little deep on this a few times during this AMA, so I don't want to go too deep on it again. But basically, as long as your hotspots are synced past the light hotspot block, which, let me pull that up again, that's 1350.
1350844.
Yeah, wow. Very nice.
And they operate.
Community
That's my point. My point is they are in their setups are almost ideal to each other. And so I really don't understand how the random validation or the random challenging from the validators work, but I just wondered, is a path cleared that makes one hotspot more likely to get challenged than another once it's accepted a challenge? I'm just curious why some would have 0 and the others would have so many.
Well, let's break it down. It's not by design. The design is you shouldn't be favored just because you were able to pass or even receive a challenge in the past. It is supposed to be uniformly random across criteria that are not about that. So it's not by design. Is it possible something's going on? Of course. That's what we're actively looking at. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's not by design is one half of that.
Good. That's it. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And Mac, you're up.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Ah, there you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just gonna say, first thing, appreciate you guys putting this AMA together. Certainly a needed thing. Communicating with us on such a big change, and excited to see when it's over. I like that idea that was brought up. This is just kind of a sub comment about incentivizing or looking for some more incentive to jump on the test net and provide y'all some hotspots. I know that there'd be a lot of people, including me, that would be willing to look at that. But my question is, after all this is said and done, I think some of these bugs that y'all are working out or troubleshooting, like, what's an expected timeline that y'all think that we will peel off the syncing of the blockchain and that aspect will be gone and we'll be kind of moving forward? I mean, do y'all have an expected timeline? Do you think that'll be in the next 7 days? And I'm only asking this because I'm just preparing to communicate to my hosts why they're seeing activity, how long they have to endure this transition.
I think when Coco was up here earlier, she said expect 3 to 4 weeks. I'd assume that that's a conservative estimate based on the difficulties that have been endured so far. But to me, it seems like we're definitely, closer than we are far to finishing the transition and removing syncing from hotspots. But I personally, I'm not on the Nova team, so I can't give any sort of definitive time frame there.
I was informed that they're going to maybe even next week for the block syncing part, but to be a full light hotspot transition, 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I was just going to say you had the right answer, Arman, which is that Cokes would be in the best position as our PM for when that decision is. So no specific answer. Clearly, there's like a whole decision tree of things go well, then the date moves up, I think is it called, meaning earlier. And if things are not going well, of course, things get pushed out.
Alrighty, thanks for that question, Mac. And Howling, you're up.
Hey, thank you. And thanks everyone for setting up this AMA, and I've met a lot of helpful people here. So I think I'm still relatively new. I started a little bit at the beginning of January. But I had a question about, and I'm not sure if this was answered earlier because I had to drop off before. But as far as I see that we are kind of at the mercy of the manufacturers updating the firmware to their hotspots? And the hypothetical question that if they go AWOL or something happens to the manufacturer, is there a way that we can push some kind of firmware to resync it back to the network, or are we kind of just holding on to some hunks of metal at that point? Thank you.
I think Jeremy is probably the perfect person to answer this.
All right. So the perfect answer is there's no way to force it for every manufacturer, because some manufacturers could develop designs that are very hard for us to take control over. The better answer is that the way things have transitioned now, that most manufacturers actually run a firmware which then occasionally pulls a Docker image from Quay, or K actually. So because of that, we're in a position that even if a manufacturer stops issuing firmware updates, should its firmware still do this secondary layering, this pulling of the miner image on a schedule, it will continue to work pretty well. And that's the best we can hope for there. But there's no like cryptographic mechanism where we can, from the blockchain or even from Nova, reach out and take control over a hotspot that's been abandoned by its manufacturer. I suggest you read some HIPs. There have been some HIPs proposed of a way to overcome this, putting up bounties by manufacturers and having community member support so that a manufacturer could step in and help rescue a suite of hotspots that have been abandoned. And the light hotspot regime also has a special update mechanism in it. Once we go fully light, the Gateway RS program has a self-updating mechanism as well. So because of that, there's some chance even a completely dead manufacturer, if they stop shipping their firmware, the other parts of the hotspot will continue to update, again, from the Docker's perspective and from the Light Gateway software's update mechanism.
Thank you very much for that, Jerm. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for the question and that detailed answer. And NOP, you're up. I know you had some issues with being muted, but looks like it's fixed.
Yeah, it looks like I'm okay now. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Well, good. Before and after the light hotspot switch, I had an issue mainly with my Nebras, where the Ethernet connection would be dropped and the lights on the miner would be dark. And so my approach has been just reboot them. Seems to me it's not getting the connection on the Ethernet. There's nothing left to do but to reboot. And it's basically my question. Is that true? Is it crashed at that point and it will have to be rebooted? I forget my second question, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, okay. So the answer is, boy, that's a Nebra question. Number one, hey, I'm sorry to hear about that. But I can't really answer because I don't personally manage their designs. So are you aware of the Nebra Discord? Is there one? I don't even know. There probably is.
Yeah, unofficial. I'll post it.
So really, you need to check that out. There's a difference in Nebra, whether it's indoor or outdoor version, right? So tough one. I'd say maybe a little bit out of scope too.
I can chime in a little bit. I do have a few Nebras myself, and I've run into the same thing where it does seem that they just kind of, maybe I'm using this term wrong, but they do actually lock up. So I've had to reboot them and they do function for a little while, and then they'll lock up again. So I have run into that myself. But yeah, I'm going to send you the link for the unofficial Nebra Discord, and you can probably get a little bit more support in there.
Yeah, I'm in that. So I don't need a link, but I'm in that Discord already. I don't much
gotcha.
I realize I've been calling you NOP, but you corrected me in a previous AMA. It's no-op. You even put it in your name. So
it's got to be
Nebra is no-op.
Well, laughing aside, yeah, don't have an easy answer and not really light hotspot related, I hope.
Yeah, I don't think so. This was before and after. Okay,
Alrighty.
thank you, gentlemen. Good day.
Thank you. Thank you, Noop. Rohan, you're up.
Hey guys, you mentioned earlier that the POC rate is the same as what it was before light hotspots. Are you verifying that it's not only the same hotspots that's constantly doing POC? Because in my area, POC is definitely not the same as before light hotspots. So how are you verifying that it's not the same hotspots continually getting POC?
I mean, this is related to an earlier question, which is like, hey, what's the scheme? Why do I notice that some hotspots are beaconing a lot more than others? So I'm not personally tracking this. I know there's a way we could track this with ETL queries. One thing I do want to bring up is some confounding factors, some things that can cause, if you're performing well, you're going to get more beacons. And if you're not performing, you're not going to get beacons. And that is sort of the heartbeat. The blockchain chooses who beacons next based on whether they appear to be alive. And if there's something going on, like if you're possibly connected to a validator that's doing well and you're still stuck on it, it could be that your heartbeat transaction is not making it to the chain, and therefore your hotspot looks like it's offline, and therefore it is not going to be sent to beacon. Whereas if you're in the luck mode, as it's been unfortunately called now, and you're stably connected to a good validator and providing a good heartbeat, the chain sees you as active, and you are now eligible for POC. So it really could be an amplifying effect. If you're stuck in a bad mode, you're not going to beacon because you're not providing that heartbeat. So that could be what's going on. But as to is anybody monitoring it, there's a way for us to monitor. Do challenges appear to be distributed randomly and fairly amongst the hotspots that are alive? My suspicion is if you do the query against the hotspots that appear to be alive, it should appear to be random. The bigger issue is how many hotspots appear to be alive versus dead.
Understood. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Sorry for interrupting your interesting speech. I'm new in this channel. I mean, I joined you a few days ago. The question that I have is about some issues that I think everybody is noticing for the hot temperature of the miners. In my specific case, I have several pitches or pices. I don't know how to pronounce that. The one that are raspberry that you can change, fix, adapt a bit with the root using the root profile user. And I wonder, in some chats today, you say that the issue is that some miners are running both versions, so both firmware version of the light one and the full hotspot version. I wonder, is there a way to avoid it in the next days? Because some of them crashed, some of my hotspots. I had to go to the place to restart them manually. Some of them are in a bad position. I mean that I have to jump on places that are not so comfortable to be reached. So this, I think, should be after the point about the missing POC proof of coverage that are not still full traced. I would like to know if you are thinking also to fix this as soon as possible, because it's causing some issues. And fortunately, there is a protection that makes them not to burn. They stop just to work for a while, and then I have to go there and to turn them on manually. But it's a bit tricky, and the other option is that I turn them off until I get a fix about that.
Thanks for the question. Cokes, you want to go for this?
So there's a lot to unpack there. I'll start with the hot temperature issue. So that is likely due with the hotspot still trying to sync. Remember, your hotspot is still syncing right now. We haven't turned off the chain sync. And in the announcement I had just posted, if everything goes well, we want to turn it off next week. So that's to address that. Now you're also talking about proof of coverage and earnings. That's also definitely been addressed, and you're not the only one seeing this.
No, I know that.
Yes, so the team is actively working on fixing it, and there's really there's nothing you can do, unfortunately, at this point. No.
Just one more question. Is there a log that you can check on each validator? I mean, are you allowed to access the validator's log or something that you can check what's going on with those proof of coverage that are the broadcasts that are not delivered or are not given away to the.
So at this point, it's not a validator issue. It's certainly something to do with the hotspot.
So you know already that the POC, the broadcast beacons are given around randomly, of course, but they are given around. The issue is on the, let's say, the algorithm or the way they are not accepted or received or proved. There is no proof of received from the hotspot side. So it's on the hotspot side, the issue.
Right now, that's what we're chasing.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add on to that, remember that your manufacturer may have a specific issue that may or may not apply to other manufacturers. I'm specifically referring to the overheating. So that's kind of a hard question to answer generally.
Yeah, but for example, the Pisces that I use, they take the minor version directly from from GitHub. There is no vendors applying anything on the Pisces.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll just have to hope that clears up as the chain following stops then. I'm going to invite up Gorjan and Rising.
Yeah, actually, I don't think so. This is a part of Light Hotspot, but I'm looking toward developing DApps, developing tokens on top of HLT. So I was unable to find some resources. So anyone can guide me?
Yeah, it is out of the scope of this specific AMA, but I know that there is a Helium Foundation grant project called Wrapped HNT or WHNT that is basically trying to take HNT to other chains. I believe that's being demoed on the upcoming community call in a couple weeks. So that might be one place to look. That's going to be sort of the easiest avenue to get towards sort of DeFi or dApp support for HNT specifically. As for the Helium blockchain itself, as of now, it's not a smart contract blockchain, but there's a plan to sort of upgrade to a new architecture, which is outlined in HIP 51. So that may sort of give you some direction on what you're asking there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, no problem. John Doe, you're up.
Hello.
Hello.
Great speaking, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I have just a question. I have several miners with the 4G connection under CZNAT. So maybe in some moments they can have the same public IP. I read that this can damage earnings. Can you explain better this point, please?
Yes, we did go over this earlier, and when this recording is posted, you can see the full answer there. But long story short, there with the Light Hotspots update is no longer any relevance to the public IP. So any issues you're having with incoming connections related to having the same public IP, from my understanding, should no longer be an issue.
Okay, another point. Money miners, which are the Marriotts, do 0 in 5 days. I rebought several times them. Is there a way to check if they are connected to a wrong validator, as for example, average CPU load usage?
So I can answer the question about how to figure out what validator your hotspot is connected to. So right now there's no central place for you to see that. We are going to add it over the next few days, but of course, because the core team is hyper focused on getting the rewards issue fixed, this is sort of falling to the wayside. That said, you can see who your challenging validator is if you see a beacon from your hotspot or a witness, you might be able to kind of follow that proof of coverage transaction to see who the challenging validator is. But in terms of knowing who your connected validator is or your durable validator, we don't have that exposed right now. But it is on our list of things to do so that it's more clear who you're connected to, what software they're running, so you have a better idea of what to expect in terms of performance and things like that.
Okay, so we will wait better times. Thank you for answer.
All right. Welcome up, computer user, and Crypto Mo as well.
Hey, brother, how you doing? Thank you for let me. So I have 7 miners altogether. I've been noticing like a lack of performance from the synchro bits. I have 2 synchro bits, and ever since I want to say maybe 3 updates ago, with the firmware there, both synchro bits have been like lacking performance. Either they have flatline for like days at a time, or they come online for like 1 day, like a couple hours, and then they flatline. Is there like an issue with just the synchro bit miners out there, or is it just me? I'm just curious.
Is certainly hard to tell and hard to pinpoint what exactly is the cause here. Now, I haven't heard anything specific to a manufacturer that people are seeing flatlines happening on. It seems to be a non-discerning performance issue, not particularly related to a manufacturer. So let's just rule that out for now, because I don't think we should start going down that avenue at this time. Your flatlining is related to probably one of the 2 issues that I mentioned in the announcements that I posted about maybe like 10 minutes ago. So definitely take a read on that. We are trying to fix it.
Will do. Thank you very much for your time, guys, and good work.
Alrighty, thanks for your question. Rising, did I just hear audio?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Oh God, thankfully. Okay, gotcha. Hey, first off, thank you all for doing the hard work. I really appreciate you guys. I know you're working hard. I had 3 questions really, and I'll try to maybe keep it short. In the old system, we had hotspots issuing challenges, I think at peak time, 240 blocks, right? If I'm not mistaken, once every 4 hours. And I know we have switched to the POC challenge rate. I don't know what the equivalent is in the new system.
Yeah.
That's my first question.
Okay, let's answer that question first.
Sure.
The equivalent is 800 challenges per block. That's assuming we get 800 receipts per block too, but we're not getting that. So once we can get, like almost a 1-to-1 ratio of receipts back for the challenges going out, then we would be equivalent. We're not there yet.
Awesome.
So the number is 800.
Okay, perfect. And then let's look ahead 2-3 months from now. Let's say that all the issues are resolved. We have a fantastic network, right? Light hotspots. What's the goal for the POC challenge rate?
It would really depend on how much more performance work we can do on the validators. So that's the challenge rate can be tweaked up and down, and it grows with the network. But that tweak has to be dependent on the validator performance and what they're able to handle.
Okay.
So if we can get these performance improvements out to validators, and the challenges per block is something that we can increase.
Okay. But is the goal to at least match, if not exceed, the 240 blocks in the old system?
Well, our goal is to meet 800. And then if we can increase on that without adding additional load on the validators. And keep in mind, load on the validators manifests itself to slow block times, longer consensus groups, and general adding instability to the network, which we do not want to do, because this network really is for transferring IoT device data. And that's still the number one thing that we want this network used for. So keep all of that in mind.
That makes sense. And my last question, I know the max witness count has changed over time. At one point it went down to 8 and has been as max as 25. Is there any plan to increase it eventually at some point, or keep it at 14?
I'm sure there are discussions to change that number, but I don't know what the plan is at this moment. We are trying to firefight the current situation.
Okay. And the goal is to increase it up, or like keep it or down? I guess.
Well, I think so Mark, I think actually touched on this earlier. You're not really improving the idea of the proof of coverage, right? You're just having more people say, I saw the same thing.
Right.
So it's a little TBD on whether that really is beneficial to the network as a whole, which is why it's something that we're just going to leave it for now and then revisit later.
Sounds good. Again, thank you all for the work you're doing, and good luck on stabilizing the network.
All right, thanks, Rising. You rose up and were able to ask the question through adversity, so your name really rings true. We also had Max up here who was having audio issues, and Max asked their question in the AMA questions channel. It was about a subject that was answered earlier, so it was about what happens when firmware updates aren't pushed by a manufacturer, and I believe Jeremy asked that to answer that to quite a great degree earlier. So I will refer Max to the recording of this AMA. And yeah, just thank you to everybody, all the Nova team members, all the mentors, the mods, for answering all the questions. I think it's been a really productive session, and I hope people have gotten as much as they hoped out of this. I think we're at the point where we're seeing a lot of questions being repeated, so not too many new unique questions coming in. And I think I'm taking that as a signal that the questions that are most pressing have been satisfactorily answered. Of course, we can't get to literally every question, but I'm glad we were able to run as long as we did. I think this is by far the longest community AMA that there has been. Thank you to everyone who stuck for this whole thing. I'm sure there are some of you out there who listened to this whole thing. And I really appreciate y'all. This is going to be really fun to watch as the development continues in the blockchain channel. And I'm sure we'll all be informed in the announcements channel as well. Let's see that POC challenge rate come up. I'm really looking forward to the progress of this latest alpha and beta release that will hopefully turn into a full minor release. And unless anyone has any last words, I'm going to wrap it up. So I'll invite anyone up here to say anything that you want to say before we wrap up.
Just want to say thank you for hosting this, by the way.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always love to be here with the Helium community, and it gets me really pumped up when we're all sort of pushing forward together. This is a really awesome experiment, this whole Helium thing. I'm just like happy to be here for the ride. So
Absolutely. And thank you also to the community, the mods, mentors, foundation, and you as well, Arman. We're going to get through this. I know it's been rough for a lot of you, but the network is still very much healthy. The blocks are moving. We haven't had any chain halt, and the packets are still flowing, right? This is exactly what this network was designed to do, is to transfer device packets and all of that good stuff. So hang in there with us. It'll get better. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to try and get these fixes out as soon as we can. We really appreciate everybody joining in and asking questions.
alrighty. Well, thank you to everybody. I'm going to end the stage now, and let's keep moving forward, everybody. This is an exciting time. So thanks to everyone for joining. Take care.
There'll be an after party.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning into the Hotspot. If you love our content, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want to maximize your impact, leave your honest review on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps us reach more listeners and educate them about the Helium Network.